everybody is a powerful soul, which is absolutely true. Everybody has sort of different origin points. They have different experiences. They have different soul signatures, different things that they do, different talents that they're good at. And that really does trickle down into the human experience. Welcome to the Akashic Recordings. I'm Annette Dalloo, Akashic conduit, channel, and spiritual guidance coach. I want to thank you for joining me today. The Akashic Recordings is created through the cooperation of my clients who have agreed to have their sessions recorded. Of course, with their permission, I am able to share these beautiful sessions with you. If you are interested in booking a session with me, you can go to my website at infinitesoulLove.com. I am inviting you to take your intuition to the next level. In the next couple of months, I am launching Soul Discovery Workshop online. This is a 3-month program where you meet with me every single week and practice not only your intuition and your spiritual gifts, discover who you are as a soul, as well as connect with others and practice your intuition so you can have the confidence that you need when you are tapping into that divine source energy and you're trying to get those messages. This workshop is going to take you to the next level. You will also start to learn how to access your own Akashic records. I will teach you how to clear vows and ancestral line traumas. The spots are limited, so I'm going to open registration for a limited amount of time. If you are interested in joining us in this beautiful group of like-minded souls, head to my website at infinitesoulLove.com. There you can head to the contact page and fill out the form, put in the message Soul Discovery Workshop, and I will put you on the waiting list. This was Melody's very first Akashic Record session. Now, that's not necessarily unique because there are a lot of people who come to me who have never had a session before. But what was incredible about this was the fact that she was asking about her soul purpose. And what we uncovered was so incredibly beautiful and mind-boggling. It was something I had never seen before in terms of a soul. And so her ability to follow and integrate and understand what was happening is nothing short of miraculous. Stay tuned. So tell me a little bit about what you would like to cover today.
My friend Shannon had a session with you and she had told me about her session. And I would like to dive into whatever comes up for you, like past lives that might be important, or if there's anything like any generational curses that need breaking, or any information that it's pertinent to like where I'm at in life now. Mm-hmm. I think knowing like my soul purpose for this lifetime, some insight, like I have an idea obviously, but like I think to like have any additional information.
Okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm at like a totally new phase of life. I like recently moved in this last year, completely changed careers, moved back closer to family, and I'm in process of like trying to start my own family. And it's a real shift in like who I've been, like persona wise, and I've been really career oriented and really driven in what I've done in that regard, but like kind of put my personal life on the back burner. Like I'm still single and all these things. And I've been in the last like 3-4 years, like trying to have a baby and going through all the steps and stuff. And it's exciting. It's like a new chapter for me. You know, I've had a lot of sessions like energy work and sessions with like medium type, whatever you want to call them, but never like specifically in Akashic Records.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Totally know what you mean. Okay. So the first thing that I'm seeing in your root chakra is there are holes in your root chakra, but they're all very even. It's not like a frenetic energy. It's actually very orderly. And all the holes are sort of around the perimeter of the chakra. And through the holes are coming like a really warm air of energy that's coming through and then like creating a point. It's almost like directed energy. And I've not seen this before. So I'm going to ask the guides what that means exactly. So is that energy that's coming from a previous life? No. Any sort of like parallel dimension? Yes. Okay. She's connected and linked to a parallel version of herself at this time. Okay. Is it in transition? It is not. This is by design. She's done this on purpose. Okay. I didn't know that we could do that. Okay, cool. What does that mean exactly? It means that she's taking the energy of the version of herself in a parallel world, and she is allowing that energy to move through her current energy field to give herself a boost, if you will. The version of her in the other parallel world is doing much better in terms of her spiritual growth. And she decided that she was going to share this growth and energy with the version of herself here and the version of herself in various other places as well. It's not just that one connection. She's connected to multiple versions of herself at the same time simultaneously in order to accelerate the growth that she is meant to have. How does that happen? There are only specific souls that are able to do this. Not all souls are able to do this. We'll get into this in her soul purpose. Okay. So are we going to see this throughout her chakra system? You will. It is in every chakra. Oh, okay. So basically what it feels like to me is that like whatever this energy is that's coming from this parallel version of yourself, and then the energy is going through these holes, so to speak, and then kind of coming out the front and into like a focused beam. And that focused beam is then going into another version of yourself in another parallel world. So it's like you're all exchanging information simultaneously as you're having these experiences. They're saying to me that you occasionally have these experiences where like you don't know something and then all of a sudden you just know it. It's just something that's there. And that's because of this connection to these parallel versions of yourself. Okay. Is there any other information we need to know about her root chakra? No, not at this time. Okay. So then let's move that energy up to your sacral chakra. So your sacral chakra has some sort of cloudiness in it. Like I'm seeing sort of like a darker gray cloud around it that usually indicates something having to do with a past life. And they're saying that this energy is actually throughout all the parallel versions of yourself. Let's move that energy up to your solar plexus chakra. And that one is also got a little bit of a gray cloud in it. And it's a bit of a mustardy yellow. That is saying to me that you're holding back on your abilities. You're holding back on moving forward in a lot of ways because of your belief that you have that you can do the things that you're setting out to do. It is self-confidence in a way, but it's less about you not believing that you can do it. It's not necessarily believing that it will happen. It's this sort of back and forth between, is this better to maybe go forward and not succeed versus doing what I'm doing currently. Okay, so then let's move that energy up to your heart space. It looks like all three of these chakras are being affected by the same thing. It's because it's the same quality. So I think that whatever we're going to find is going to be affecting all three of these chakras. So whatever past life we're going to look at is going to be whatever we need to clear is going to clear all three. So then I would like you to imagine a crystalline light about 6 feet above your head and allow that light to shine down through your crown chakra. I'm seeing still more of this like sharing information between you and the parallel versions of yourself. And so I'm seeing from your crown an arc going from your crown chakra to each one of the parallel versions of yourself, and then having those all like sort of meld together and then going up in one beam up to the divine. That's where you're actually giving information. Your crown chakra is actually more giving information than receiving at this moment. And that seems to be overall what you're comfortable with on a regular basis is more giving versus receiving. And that is you being more in the divine masculine version of your energy versus the divine feminine version of your energy. Does she need to be more on the receiving end of messages in her energy? Yes. There needs to be a pathway that's created that's like a two-way street versus a one-way street. So that's something she can work on. It's going to be more about you trying to listen and listen more often to the messages that your guides are telling you, versus always trying to give information. And it's something that is intrinsically part of your soul. This is kind of what you do, but it's also important for you to listen. That's something we'll address throughout the session as well. All right, so then let's move that energy to your third eye. I'm hearing widen the scope. So your third eye is developing beautifully. The issue at the moment is that it's almost like too narrowly focused. So you just need to broaden that energy a little bit? And do we have any idea as to how we can guide to widen that scope? Ultimately, she just needs to be more open to anything that comes her way. She has a tendency to listen to a message and then connect to that message, but then she doesn't leave herself open for other messages to come in, for potential fear of contradiction or fear of things not being correct. The problem with that is that there are multiple versions of herself that she's getting information from. Sometimes things are accurate and true, but they may not be for her currently, but they might be for her in the future. Oftentimes, what ends up happening is that she gets stuck on a particular piece of guidance or a particular piece of information, and she sits on that. To widen the scope, to widen the extent of her third eye is going to allow her to see a bigger picture. So then let's move that energy down to your throat chakra, and that is stuttering a bit. There's a bit of a challenge with communication in the human world. So you have this really beautiful energy in terms of communication on your soul level, but in the human world, you struggle to find the words that actually make sense for you, because you do operate on a soul level at such a higher level of frequency that there really are not a lot of words in the human language that can actually convey what it is that you experience. It's a lot like having experiences in a dream state. And when you wake up from a dream, sometimes it's hard to describe what it is that you experienced. It just sort of falls short. It's exactly like that, but it's even grander than that because it's not a dream. It's your soul life, if you will. And that has a tendency to really take precedence over a lot of other things. And so it does make it difficult for you sometimes to be in this world. Thank you to Akula, my Akashic guide. Thank you for being here. So good to see you. Today we are opening up the Akashic Records. I want to thank Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon for being here today and helping us have the clearest access to the Akashic Records. Thank you. Before we dive into where we need to go, and the first lifetime that we're going to look at is the one that's blocking the heart, solar plexus, and your sacral. I wanted to ask you if you had any questions about the chakra scan that we did. Was there anything that didn't make sense?
No, I was surprised to hear about some of the holes and the information going between, parallel lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the block in my solar plexus, some of it makes sense, definitely, and wanting something to happen, but maybe not, not being sure that it can happen, or, And then with the crown chakra, it totally makes sense to me because that's been my challenge of changing my energy and shifting it from being like more masculine energy to more feminine energy of like vulnerability and receiving rather than I'm always giving to everybody else. That's been a huge change and shift for me in the last few years of taking my power back and realizing that I need to give to myself and be open to receiving rather than just giving all the time. That really made sense. I think, it all feels on point.
Okay, great. I wanted to make sure that it also made sense from the standpoint of the parallel lives, because from my perspective, this is the first time I'm seeing this entirely. So I didn't even know that this could happen. So this is going to be new territory we're going to be exploring together. So that'll be fun.
It's kind of funny because my sister and I have been talking a lot in the last couple months about parallel dimensions and parallel timelines. And so.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's really interesting that this is
coming up now. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to take a look at the first life that we need to look at, which is the lifetime that's creating the blockages in those three chakras. The first thing they're saying is that they want to make sure that you know that this lifetime that we're going to look at is from your current dimension, your current world. So this is not from a parallel timeline. So this is past. Yeah. So past life for this current incarnation that you were in at this moment. You didn't understand what was happening to you in this incarnation, in this previous one we're looking at. There was a lot of confusion. A lot of things were bleeding into your experience. So you were getting information from so many different places. Okay, this might explain why you're having issues with receiving information. What I'm seeing is happening is that you're receiving messages from the universe. You're receiving messages from multiple different places, and it's kind of doing your head in a little bit. Like you can't process the information and you can't understand the information. You understand that it's coming in from somewhere else. That is something that you consciously know, but you kind of feel like, okay, so it's like, if you can imagine if you have like 10 different radios in one room and each radio is tuned into a different radio station and they're all blaring at you all at the same time. You'll pick up certain things when things like that happen, when you have a lot of stimulus. You can focus on one thing and sort of drown out the rest of them, but you're only going to get it in bits and pieces. It's hard to focus on one thing all at the same time while being sort of bombarded by other information. So this was something that was happening based on the origin of your soul. Was this one of her original lifetimes? No, but she's had this problem her whole existence here on Earth. She has. So this has been something you've struggled with since your inception on Earth. This idea of not understanding how to disseminate the information that you are receiving because you're getting it from so many different places. So if you can imagine, most people have a bunch of cords that, let's say, are attached to them from past lives or from, let's say, family, and let's say they have other energetic cords that are to their place of origin from their soul, and like information travels through these cords. Let's say one cord is going to give you information and then another cord is going to give you information. That is typical of most souls. The problem with the origin of your soul and the type of soul that you are, it's not like you have cords. It's literally just like all the information is coming to you at once. So it's not filtered in. This is why they were showing me in your chakra system, these holes that go around the perimeter of the chakra, and the holes are what directs the energy. So it's there purposely, and that's why they were showing me this energy that comes in through the holes and then it goes out and then it comes to a point and then it's directed. And this is by design. So you've created this system to be able to do this so you can survive as a human, because it's been difficult for you over the course of your many lifetimes. Okay, so what is it about this particular lifetime that's important for us to clear the chakras? She shut down. Okay, so what I'm seeing is that like this particular lifetime that we're seeing was one of the first lifetimes where the veil of forgetfulness that we get when we incarnate on this planet, the veil started thinning for you more and more as your incarnations moved forward, and that's supposed to happen. The problem is that it thinned a little bit too much for you in this particular lifetime, and it created what looked like schizophrenia, and that's not what it was. It wasn't that, but it presented itself in some certain ways that was similar to that. So when people in that particular period of time, and this was a long, long time ago, this was not recent. They're giving me the year 1321. It was a period of time where when people had illnesses like that, like they just locked them up. They didn't do anything else. Like they didn't know how to fix them. They didn't even, schizophrenia wasn't even a thing. It was just like, oh, this person is crazy. They're just going to be locked up. And so you were locked up. I'm not seeing your family around though. Can you show us a little bit more about what happened to her family? Like why was she locked up without anybody around? Because I'm getting that this came on later on in life. It wasn't like it was when you were a child. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so it was triggered by the death of your parents. You had one sister. She was not around though. She had moved away, not far, like to the next village over, but it was far enough where she didn't know what was going on in your life a lot of the time. It was difficult for the both of you to travel. You didn't see each other very often. So what I'm seeing is that you very much loved just being in nature. That actually helped sort of calm what you were getting, like in terms of the energy, in terms of the information. It would help calm you and it would help clarify the messages that you were getting. But those moments were few and far between because you did actually have to sort of exist and function in public, and it wasn't going well. There was a man there who I'm getting that he was the owner of many different things. So he was the owner of, there was like a pub or some sort of bar restaurant or something that he owned. And then he owned a couple of other things. He wasn't super important in the grand scheme of things, but he found himself to be rather important. And you kind of rubbed him the wrong way. He was the one that sort of facilitated you getting locked up. It's about taking your your autonomy away, essentially. It was hard for you to be there because you were getting not only your own messages and crossed wires and all of the things that were happening, but then you were getting all the information from the people that were locked up around you, which was really hard for you because some of the other people were locked up because they were violent or that they had committed some sort of crime or something like that. And so you were getting really dark information from some of these people. And that harmed you in a lot of ways, a lot energetically. Yeah. I'm just seeing all three chakras. So your sacral, your solar plexus, and your heart. It's just like while you were in this place, I just see all three of them just getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. You didn't have anybody to visit you. You had no way of communicating to your sister that you were even there. Your sister did eventually find you, like when she hadn't heard from you, and this had been a couple of years even. She hadn't heard from you in a couple of years. She kind of got worried. And so she did make the trek over to where you were living to see where you were. And she did find you. She was able to get you out of the place, but the damage had already been done. And I'm seeing you, okay. This is where the throat chakra thing came in. So I'm seeing you like sitting in a chair, and she actually took you back with her to wherever she was living. And I'm seeing you sitting in a chair and just stuttering and not really knowing how to explain to her what you're experiencing, not really knowing how to explain to her what happened to you, what you experienced while you were locked up. And I'm hearing the words like catatonic. So it was almost as if you just couldn't function. You were just kind of checking out. Is there anything else we need to know about this lifetime? No, not at this time. What is it that we need to do to clear these chakras then? Because this has been active in her energy field for too long. That's a long, long time for that to be active. Part of the reason why it's been active for so long in her energy field is not necessarily just because of this past life, but it is also because of the fact she's trying to find a solution to the problem. And she has found many solutions to the problem of having all the information disseminated all at once. But she has slowly but surely put things into place that will help her human self survive here on Earth and be able to do the job that she came here to do. And that's where we're going to go next. Okay. So we'll find out what you actually came here to do and what your soul purpose is. But before we do, I want to ask you if you have any questions.
No, I got really emotional when you talked about it though.
Okay. Yeah. That usually happens when we know we're connecting to it. It sort of gives us that confirmation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a look at your soul purpose. Do we need to look in any past lives to get that? No. We're just going to give you the information. Okay. This is something that we want to channel first because Annette doesn't have the frame of reference in her mind for the type of soul that you are. The soul that you have been and your soul origin point are incredibly important for you to know. It'll help you understand why certain things happen the way that they do for you in this lifetime, as well as in previous lifetimes. It'll help you understand why the puzzle pieces don't quite fit sometimes in your human life. And this is simply because the soul purpose that you have is to react to certain situations within your experience with absolute love and clarity in the information that you are receiving from the place where you originated, and then disseminating that information right back to the rest of the universe. This is quite a different soul purpose than has been seen in the past. In the past, souls will receive information here on Earth and disseminate it to their soul's origin point. So whether it is a planet or whether it is an energy, whether it is a star, it doesn't matter what it is. That information gets disseminated back to the place of origin. For you, it's not back to the place of origin. It is to the entire universe. You are sending this information to the entire universe. And that can be something that can be a little mind-boggling for a human to understand, that something like that is possible, to be able to disseminate information on that grand of a scale. But that is why you feel that you need to give that information on a regular basis. It is why you are connected to all the parallel versions of yourself, so you can work together to be able to disseminate the information to the right places at the right times. Eventually, all the information gets disseminated, but it can't all go at the same time. As you know, time is all happening simultaneously. So it does have to do with the dimensions and the parallel worlds. From one perspective, it is the right time. From another perspective, it is just the right place, the right situation. So if you have information about how to connect in with your guidance through your chakra system, and you get a piece of information that you unlock in this life, that information is going directly to all the parallel versions of yourself to compare against the experiences that they are having, to then create a more cohesive whole and a more well-rounded piece of information to then send to the universe. Every single soul in the universe will benefit from this information. They're showing me all of these millions of points of information that is going out from your soul. And then there's just one little tiny channel of information coming in. That's where the imbalance can come in. And it's sort of just a natural state of your soul. It's how your soul operates. It is a chore, and it is challenging for you sometimes to sort of try to balance that out, because it's almost as if the need to disseminate the information is so big. It's like you can't control it. You can't control that need to put the energy out there. You have like a fire hose. You can't stop the water from coming out. And you could technically turn the hose off, but if you do, it's going to bottleneck and the water's going to build up and it's going to explode anyway. So you kind of have to just keep that hose on while mastering that. Then in addition, trying to master receiving the information at the same time, so you don't get completely overwhelmed and confused like you did in that previous lifetime. It is not just the information that she is giving out in terms of her own experience here on Earth. It is about the experiences that her soul has had on many other planets and many other star systems all over the world, all over the galaxies, all over the divine creation of the universe. Her soul is one of the oldest souls that exist. Now, you may say that souls have always existed because you can never create or destroy energy, and that is true. The difference is her soul was created out of something else much, much longer ago. If you can imagine how old your soul, Annette, is, her soul is 100,000 times older. Wow. Okay. She's been doing this for a very long time. She has done this on other planets. She's done this in other places, and she has been successful at it. Earth has been one of the harder places to do what she does because there's so many organisms, there's so many people, there are so many things on this planet. Most other planets she goes to is not as populated, is not as filled with life. And so it's not as difficult for her to do the job that she needs to do. There are many souls that have decided to be here on Earth at this time, and the overcrowding of souls makes it difficult for her to do her job as well. Because if you can imagine, there is an infinite amount of parallel versions of every single person on this planet. It gets a lot to manage. In the shadow side of what she does, she can sometimes turn inward and not want to deal with anyone, not want to deal with anything, not want to disseminate the information, not want to share the information. She just wants to be. I'm going to pause right there. Did all of that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just, that's not what I expected to hear. I'm like trying to wrap my brain around it, you know? It does make sense. And then it also is like, wow.
One of the things that I find makes it easier to understand how vast we are as souls is if we can sort of take the individual aspects out of it. So in other words, every single soul that exists is huge and powerful and has these amazing abilities. Every single person on this planet does. If we can think of it from that standpoint or that beginning point, and then understand that each individual soul has come from various different places. Some people are born from stars. Some people are born from galaxies. You just don't know where each soul is coming from and how they've disseminated into the human. If you look at it from that standpoint, it kind of brings it down to a more, I guess, manageable level to know that every single person on this planet has some version of an origin story that is more powerful than they think that they are. So if you go from that standpoint, then it makes it a little bit easier to sort of absorb and integrate that information. That also being said, what you do is quite unique. It is something that hasn't been done a lot on various planets. This is something that is very unique to your particular soul signature and your soul pattern. Okay, so now we're going to go into your soul's origin and how many of you are there of these. I can't even say ancient soul because it doesn't even cover how old your soul is. We'll just say the infinite nature of your soul. This is a period of time when there weren't a lot of stars, there weren't a lot of galaxies, there weren't a lot of planets. It was very sparse in the universe. You and the souls that are around you, who are the same soul signature, it's almost as if you were multiplying yourselves. You were creating these giant explosions within yourself to create more of you. This only happened for a particular period, and 100,000 souls were created in this manner. And not all of those souls are on Earth. Only a fraction of them are on Earth at this current moment. Oh, and by a fraction, they really mean that. Okay, so they're saying like roughly about 100. There are only 100 out of those 100,000 that are actually incarnated on Earth at this time. So there are about 100 of you that are doing the job that you're doing. They're saying this is by design because if there were more of these infinite souls on this planet, God, I really wish there was another word I could use for that because there's no word in vocabulary that I think can really describe what I'm seeing. It's simply just the nature of your soul and how long it's been in the current form that it's in. That's a better way to say it. It's however long your soul has been in the current form that it's in, it is much longer than most other souls. So like there are only about 100 of you that have this type of longevity. And I'm hearing that your souls were, the 100,000 souls were like the original God spark. When these souls and when this energy started understanding that it could multiply by these explosions, so to speak, these explosions of energy, that's what really pushed forward the development of galaxies and stars and planets and things like that, because it was this divine realization that, oh, okay, so if I'm able to create new things out of nothing by these little explosions, I mean, for lack of a better term, we would consider this to be the Big Bang. That's what we talk about here on Earth, but it's similar to that. It's if you look at the way that atoms split, the way that when you take atoms and you fuse them, that creates an explosion, things like that. Like you start thinking about in terms of actual science and how that works. That's kind of what was happening with your souls, realizing that you could multiply. So then the parallel versions of herself that she is connecting to, are they these 100,000? No, they are in fact different. She is connecting to the more human version, parallel versions of herself that are existing in other realms of planet Earth. Okay, got it. In other timelines, yes. So can you fill us in on a little bit more of what her soul and those other 100 souls came here to do? We also want to make it clear that the reason why it's only 100 on this planet is because this planet could not handle the energy of more of them, because they are such ancient souls. The energy of it would be shifting the planet's energy too quickly. It would also be shifting the energy of the planet without the planet's consent. It would be almost like taking over the energy of a planet as opposed to letting the planet evolve on its own. So there had to be a very, very good balance in terms of how many of you were here. This happens a lot in terms of all the different energies of souls that come here. There has to be a balance, because if there isn't, there is a type of energy that can overtake Earth's energy and not allow her to ascend on her own, which is what needs to happen. Okay, so then from a human standpoint, what does this mean? From a human standpoint, this means that she needs to really focus on the balancing of energies within herself. And that means the balancing of her human self with what her soul is doing. She cannot let her soul completely take over. Not that there's a fear of her being able to do what she's here to do or not accomplish what she's here to do. It is more that in the last several hundred lifetimes, she has cultivated new ways and new tools to be able to not let this job that her soul needs to do affect her human life in such a great degree. Okay. So is her soul purpose, is it entirely energetic? So there's nothing that her human self necessarily needs to do? That is not entirely correct. Her human self does need to take care of her body. Her human self does need to take care of things. So she does ground herself into her human life as well as her what you would call spiritual life, her soul life. That's the balance that needs to happen. They're showing me there are times when you go down the spiritual rabbit hole, so to speak, like you can get lost in it. And that's kind of what they're talking about. Like you can kind of get lost in that energy of it, and to stay very, very grounded and to connect with your human self is important to be able to thrive and to be able to do the things you're here to do. I'm going to pause right here. Do you have any other questions about that?
So grounding in my human self is basically like doing things to make sure I'm like being present in the moment and with like my day-to-day human activities and stuff, and not just be focused on like the energetic or the ethereal or, you know, any other realms or what I'm supposed to be, like the messages that I'm getting and stuff like that. Right?
Correct. If you get to a place where you feel like you're getting lost in it, in other words, like you're spending more time there than here, that's where that imbalance can come in. So like they're literally showing me half of your day needs to be doing human things and half of your day needs to be doing soul things. And it's not that your soul is ever stopping doing the things that it's doing. It's doing the thing it needs to do constantly. It's just whether your human self is really paying attention to what that is or not. Mm-hmm. It is obviously the dream state is a place where you will be paying attention as a human. Yeah. But then also in your meditations and any of your spiritual work and that kind of thing. So just, make sure that you're letting go and going out and having fun and doing the things that you love to do as a human in order to sort of ground that energy in. Okay. So one of the questions that I have is, with all this information that she's putting out into the world, is there anything in particular that she's working on in this lifetime for her life purpose? Like what information is she disseminating at this point? It's not to say that she's giving information that is specific in any particular subject matter. It is just simply the living of her life and how she's experiencing life that is allowing her to come into a greater, fuller expression of love, companionship, experience, what it is that she can do to help others. What is it that she can do to help herself? Unconditional love is a very, very big theme, and being able to experience that on every single level. That is something that she is currently working on and has been working on for the last several lifetimes. This hasn't always been the case. She has worked on other themes, other things, but this particular set of lifetimes that she's had over the last 10 or so lifetimes, she has been working on unconditional love and disseminating the information to the other versions of herself, to the entire universe, as to how one can anchor in unconditional love on a dualistic planet such as Earth, which is not an easy feat to do. It's part of the reason why she has such a drive to have a child, because a child and a parent, especially in the first few moments after birth, are the quintessential, purest forms of unconditional love. This is an experience she wants to have.
That totally makes sense.
Okay, good. And what I'm getting also is that once you have the child, it's like your soul is going to be like, okay, this is a new form of unconditional love that I can now understand. And then after that, it's going to be something that you're going to be able to experience in all forms. Mm-hmm. So in relationship, in connection with your family, and in all things, that's going to be this sort of starting point for you in this journey in unconditional love.
It's interesting because I have really close relationship with my family, especially my sister and my parents, especially. Mm-hmm. But we've always had, I feel like, the unconditional love, but between us, you know, like we've always been close, but I've never had that experience outside of the family, like with relationship or, you know, with another person, really.
It's going to be a different energy for you because the unconditional love that you will have with your child, it's almost like going to amplify it and take it up a notch. And then you're going to look at your relationship with your family and you're going to be like, oh, I see I could improve the energy of this unconditional love with my family, because you can still have it and then you can have different levels of it, if you will. It's actually going to amplify that love with your family once you have the child.
Yeah.
It changes our frame of reference, basically, is what it does. One of the things you're sort of giving information to the universe about in this unconditionally loving relationship is that a lot of times people look for the unconditional love in the other person instead of the unconditional love within themselves. And that's part of what you're sort of navigating at this moment, because we look at someone, or let's say a baby, a newborn baby, and we just have all of this love for that one child or for that one being, when in fact that love, you're not getting it from that child, you're getting it from within yourself. Oftentimes that's where parents, when they have children, if they don't understand that that unconditional love is within them, they're not getting it from their child, that's when parents have a really hard time with separation, with children growing up and then moving out and everything else. It's like they have those problems because they're not understanding that the unconditional love is actually within themselves. It's not due to their children. And it's basically the child has unconditional love, you have unconditional love, and you're sharing that unconditional love together. It's not that you can't have your own unconditional love without the child being there. This is kind of what that's going to show you and teach you. And then you're going to be able to understand how to express this in every other aspect of your life. And then in turn, you're going to help the entire universe to understand what it means to do this, so other people can start anchoring this into their lives. Beautiful life purpose. So do you have any other questions about life purpose, soul purpose, career, anything like that?
No, I feel it all really feels like it makes a lot of sense and resonates. Career-wise, I'm not worried about any of it. And soul purpose, that's really cool. It's not exactly what I thought, but it's definitely feels in alignment with what I'm doing, and especially this next chapter. Because I do feel like I've always had that feeling like, it was learning boundaries from it, or that I'm not responsible for other people's happiness, but I always was trying to spread happiness and joy and love and, positive to everybody.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, you are in a weird way responsible for giving people the tools to achieve their happiness and their unconditional love within their relationships and things like that. But that's on a soul level and that's not on a human level. So I feel like what was happening prior to this is that it's almost like your human self was taking a cue from your soul and you were trying to do the same thing in the human realm, and it just wasn't working because that's not how it works. So it's like on a soul level, giving the tools and leading by example is super effective. But when you try to do that and give all the love that you have within you to a bunch of people, thousands of people, it's gonna wear you out. It's gonna exhaust you. So that's where the sort of reining back and reconnecting to yourself is exactly what you were feeling guided to do. I'm going to actually ask if there are any things that you need to clear, any soul contracts, vows, any ancestral curses, any sort of things that need to be cleared as of now. She does have one soul contract that needs to be cleared. She doesn't have any vows. Can we clear those today? Yes, you can clear those today. Okay. The ancestral trauma is on her paternal side. Yes. She incarnated in this family knowing the type of family it would be. This is not her forte, to transmute energy and to clear ancestral lines. That's not what she's here for. So clearing this ancestral line trauma will help her in having more clear energy. Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like you to imagine that you are in a field of grass and flowers and there's a circle of trees surrounding us. And I would like you to imagine that in front of you, there's a door. And I would like you to open the door and walk inside. This is a representation of where your Akashic records are held. And in the center of the space, there's a book sitting on a pedestal. And this represents every experience you've ever had here on earth as a soul. And I'm going to ask, what soul contract do we need to clear at this time? They're saying it's 3 lifetimes ago. It was with the soul that was your brother at the time. Is this soul incarnated with her now? No. They chose to incarnate together and create the soul contract because they had something that they wanted to work through from a previous lifetime. She doesn't know why she was particularly drawn to his soul, but she was. She was drawn to this person in particular to be able to help him move through some of the darkness that he was in, and understanding that transmutation was not something that she was really created for. It was hard for her to sort of accept defeat. So she kept on incarnating with this soul for several lifetimes, hoping to help this particular soul because she had a great fondness for it, and she was not able to do so. Okay. So I'm getting that 3 lifetimes ago was the last time you incarnated with this soul. You just sort of left that soul behind in terms of not wanting to help this person anymore because it had gotten to the point where it was pretty toxic in that lifetime for the both of you. So you sort of left that behind. Okay, so I'm going to ask that soul to come forward, whatever experience they had in that life 3 lifetimes ago, to be able to come forward and sign the book, releasing not only him, but also her from any soul contract that they had together. And then I would like you to imagine that you're signing the book, releasing you both from any soul contract that you had together. So he's actually resisting a little bit. He's saying he still wants you to help him. Is this soul incarnated on Earth at this time? Yes. We're going to ask the higher self of that person to be in the sacred space, in a divine bubble of protection. And I'm just going to have a little conversation with him to ask him why it is that he wants to hang on to this soul contract. Because I want you to understand that it's all old energy. If you want to create a new soul contract, you can actually create a new soul contract together once you both cross over after this lifetime. And if you decide to be in each other's lives after that, you can. It's just the old soul contracts don't really help either one of you. He's asking if you would be open to being in another soul contract with him at another time.
I say maybe.
And I'm hearing your higher self say, we'll see. We'll see how things go. He's saying that's good enough for him. He just didn't want it to be like a solid no. You'll get a bigger picture of what's going on also once you both cross over again. So you can have that discussion then. Okay, so he's willing to sign it then. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So then just imagine that you are signing that book, releasing you both from that soul contract. Thank you. It is complete. Okay, great. Thank you. Wonderful. So I would like you to imagine that you are exiting your sacred space back out into the clearing of grass and that circle of trees. And I would like to close the Akashic Records. Thank you to Akula, my Akashic guide, for giving us all of this information. And thank you, Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon, for also giving us this information and helping us channel this information today. The records are closed. The records are closed. The records are closed. Okay. How do you feel?
I feel good.
Amazing.
Yeah, I feel great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I would like to thank Melody for her participation in the podcast. Let's talk about big, huge concepts and information that we get from the universe that we may not understand with our brains. Now, this happens a lot. It happens a lot with me, and it has for the last several years for my spiritual journey. This is common because a lot of times the energy of what needs to be conveyed hits you first. There are times when I will have a client such as Melody who may not quite understand everything that I'm saying and may not understand everything that the channel is giving her. But as you heard, she knew that it resonated. You can feel it. When you're in these sessions, you can feel the resonance of the truth of what is being said. Now, you may not understand it on a logical level, and that's okay. And in fact, it's almost preferable for you not to understand it on a logical level, because a lot of this information transcends your logical brain. A lot of this information has a lot to do with energy. It has a lot to do with things that our physical body can't do. So we have to sort of go into our hearts and our imagination and feel into whether or not something is really resonant for us. Now, sometimes that can take a while. I'll give you a good example of a part of my spiritual journey that sort of took a while to integrate. When I was in my first period of time where I was voraciously consuming spiritual material, I came across Dolores Cannon. And if you haven't listened to her yet, listen to her videos that she has on YouTube, which there are many. If you just look up Dolores Cannon, you'll be able to find her. When I first listened to her videos, I could only listen to maybe a half hour because it was almost breaking my brain. Like I couldn't follow and I couldn't understand. And some of the stuff just sounded kind of bonkers. And I was just like, I can't quite follow, but I knew there was something there. I knew that it was resonant but I just couldn't wrap my brain around it. And that was the problem. I was trying to understand with my brain. So I would listen to maybe a half hour of her videos, and most of the videos that she has out there, they're, a couple hours long. And I was only able to handle it in those small chunks. And it wasn't until I started reading the Akashic Records that I started to really understand and really see what she was speaking of, and the energy that she was connecting to was guiding her down a particular path with that particular client. So I want to be clear that there isn't anything that I needed to do. There was nothing I needed to do in order to integrate this information. It just took time. And there are a lot of times where you just plant a seed in a particular session, and planting that seed is all that needs to happen. Because what happens at that point is you start to go about your life, you live in your day-to-day, and you start seeing the synchronicities. You start putting together the pieces. You might be just driving to work, and all of a sudden you'll just have a little intuition or a little epiphany about something. That's how these sessions work. It can be a lot. Especially like the session we had with Melody, where she found out that she is an ancient soul. Not only that, but she's an incredibly powerful soul. And that is one of the things that a lot of my clients have a lot of issues with. And that is trying not to identify too much with the vastness of who they are. Because I think a lot of people are afraid, oh, well, maybe it'll go to my head. Maybe my ego is going to be triggered and I'm going to think I'm better than everybody else. There are a lot of different ways that you can take these things. And that is why during the session, I did mention to Melody that everybody is a powerful soul, which is absolutely true. Everybody has sort of different origin points. They have different experiences. They have different soul signatures, different things that they do, different talents that they're good at. And that really does trickle down into the human experience. There's a recommendation that I have for really trying to absorb and identify this information. And it is to just let it be. When I first found out that my soul was one of the souls that helped create Earth, and I'm not alone. There were millions of souls that helped create Earth. Think about the energy that is required for creation. So if you think about that, there are a lot of souls that were involved in that. But when I found out that that was part of my soul's history, it was hard to understand. And it was hard to believe even. But then once I started really connecting to it and connecting to who I am, it really started to feel right. And then you can start going down the rabbit hole of, oh, cool. So what did I create? Did I create otters and cats and all of the cute things that I love? Which, I'd like to believe that I did, but I may not have, right? And those types of things don't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things. This is part of the identification we have with our individuality. We have this need to have this label put upon us or creating labels for ourselves. And I've spoken about this before. It can be a problem because if you say, well, I'm this soul who helped create Earth, but then you find out information later on down the road that, let's say, your soul helped create Earth, but also helped destroy another planet. Well, how could those two things be true? Well, they absolutely can be, because there are so many different ways in which energy can interact with itself, and divine energy can interact with itself. If you think about it, we as souls, we are infinite, and energy has infinite possibilities. I've really started to understand that pretty much everything is possible. So if you found yourself scratching your head during this particular session, don't worry, you're probably not alone. Because most times when you hear this information, it is coming to you through your ears, through your brain, and you may not be tapped into the energy of it. The energy of it is what is important. When I channel this information for my clients, I am seeing the visuals and I'm feeling the energy of it. There may be some obstacles for me personally to be able to verbally describe what I'm seeing, to be able to put into words the actual thing that is happening or that I'm seeing. And that is challenging in and of itself, because so many of the things that happen in divine source energy can be so indescribable by words. You can feel it, you can see it, you can hear it, but can you describe it? So that's why I encourage you, not only for this episode, but for every single episode you listen to of this podcast, listen with your intuition, connect into your heart, even go into a little meditation before you start listening. It can help you integrate the information. It can help you feel into the information. It can help you feel into what it is I'm describing. So then you might get your own visuals. You might get your own indications of what that means for you. I truly believe that it is no mistake that any given person is listening to these episodes. I feel like that there is most likely something in it for each and every one of you in every single episode. There's going to be something that you take from it that you will be able to integrate. I do want to talk about integration in a minute. Before I do that, though, I do want to wrap up one last thing on this particular subject matter. Sometimes the boggling of the brain or the confusion of the brain is the purpose. I experienced this a lot when I was working with my mentors, Lee and Sherry, where there are times when Lee would be saying something to me or Sherry would be saying something to me and my brain just couldn't compute. And for a while, I was thinking that maybe they were doing this on purpose and I couldn't figure out how they were doing it or why. And it wasn't until much later that I started to realize that, yeah, they were doing it on purpose, but not consciously. That in fact, through the channel that they were expressing, that was what needed to come out in order for me to get out of my brain. So a lot of times, hearing this information and getting us out of our brains is the purpose, because being in the brain is actually what gets us in these fear energies. It gets us in those worrying energies or the questioning energies like, oh gosh, am I really that? I don't understand if I do. And it's like, you know what? It actually does not matter. Are you living an aligned life? Are you living with love? Are you living your values? All of those things matter for our human existence. And when it comes to the integration of this information, sometimes it doesn't matter if you understand it. Now we're going to talk about integration for a moment, because I feel like this word is used a lot. I use the word a lot, but I don't know that it's ever really been discussed in terms of what it actually truly means. This is another one of those instances where I can say, yes, it's integration of the energy, and I know exactly what that means, and I know exactly what that feels like, but can I put it into words? I'm connecting in now, and I'm going to channel a little bit of information about this. And the first thing that I'm seeing is building blocks. We all have building blocks of who we are, what our soul is made up of, the experiences that we've had, all of the things that we intend to do with our existence. And when we experience something, let's say we learn a lesson, and that lesson is not necessarily coming through. So then we have to repeat that situation. And let's say you repeat that situation and you still don't learn the lesson. That means that that piece of information that you are trying to learn has not yet integrated with your soul. Think about that for a second. It's almost as if you're trying to get a building block. So let's say, for example, you're trying to learn the lesson of letting go of control. This is one of the ones that I've had to learn. I came across greater and greater challenges over the course of time because I wasn't learning that lesson. So the more I tried to control, the less I was in control. And so I did not earn that little building block until I decided to start letting go. So then let's say I have earned that building block. I have learned how to let go of control. But is it going to be permanent? Am I going to be sliding back into old behavior sometimes? Yeah, sure. That does happen. We are human. But it means that you have this building block. It is now integrated. It is part of your DNA, so to speak. It is part of your soul signature, part of your energy field. And how deeply it is ingrained depends on how long you've been practicing the integration. So let's say I learned the lesson to let go of control. Let's say I learned that first on an energetic level. And then it takes some time for that to sort of trickle down into my human self. And then once my human self really grabs onto that building block and says, yep, I got it. This is what I'm going to do. And this is how I'm going to respond from now on. The more you practice it, the more that building block gets fully integrated. That's when learning lessons. What does it mean when, let's say, you're integrating your shadow? Integration of shadow means very much the same thing. It is another type of building block, but it is one that you already possess. It is one you already have, and you're trying to take it off and put it away. You're trying to remove this building block and you're saying, nope, I don't want this building block anymore. I'm just going to give this away. And I'm going to put it in this closet over here and I'm going to close the door and never look at it again. Those are those things that we don't like about ourselves. So when we discuss integrating the shadow, what it means is it means that we're going back to the closet. We're taking that building block back. We're integrating it back into our energy field and into our bodies. And we're saying, you know what? Even though this is a shadow version of myself, I still am accepting and loving this part of me. And what happens when you do that is you end up being able to start to smooth out those shadowy edges, if you will. I felt it was important to sort of talk about the integration of things because when we talk about the integration of information, as we are in this particular session, that is exactly what it is. It is just another building block that is going to elevate your energy. It's going to elevate your frequency so you can move on to the next level. Now, I've often spoken about this, that I love thinking about us leveling up like a character in a video game. And that's exactly what it is. We are leveling up, we are refining, we are fine-tuning, and we are becoming more pure, more benevolent, more magnificent versions of ourselves, more loving versions of ourselves. And that's the goal, right? At least it is in my eyes. The last thing I want to address is being human is hard, especially when you are a soul such as Melody's. And she's really trying to create something that is beneficial for this planet and for humanity. And she's pioneering certain things in terms of energy. And there are hundreds of millions of souls out there that are doing similar things where there is no guidebook, where you actually are taking your talents and trying to streamline what you are bringing to this planet in terms of your gifts and your energy. I was speaking to a friend of mine today about how being human is hard because when you embark on this journey, you don't realize how it changes you. You don't realize what it does to you, not only physically, but energetically. When you get to a certain stage, it actually is harder to be in the physical world than it is to be on the other side, meaning in meditation or in the Akashic Records or connecting to people in the 5D, whatever you happen to do as a practice. Sometimes it's easier to be there and it's more joyful to be there. It's certainly more peaceful. So my friend and I were talking today about how we need to practice being human, and we do need to go out and start doing more human things because you can get really caught up in the spiritual world and forget how to live your human life. If you are in this space, let me know how you're doing. Let me know what you've done to cultivate more of your human life in addition to having your spiritual life and creating that balance. I'm still struggling with that. I'm still trying to find that balance. I actually did just have a session with my mentor, and we were talking about that, the fact that basically I need to start cultivating more of my human life, that I have been spending almost too much time in the Akashic Records or in meditation. But it is a lovely place to be. It really is. But I did understand the comment, because relationships and our connections and what we're here to do is so, so, so important. Because even though we have an infinite amount of time, we do still have these short years on this planet, and we want to make them as beautiful as possible. Thanks so much, and I will connect with you all next week. If you're enjoying this podcast, it would be really amazing if you could like, share, and subscribe. Wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple or Spotify, feel free to give it a review if you feel called. If you are following me on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you are notified for every single new episode of the Akashic Recordings. If you feel called to book a session with me, you can always reach me at infinitesoullove.com, and you can book directly on my website. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I can't wait to connect with